And coming up on today's episode of the Marty Mariner Show, well, it's a big one for us Central Coast Mariners fans in particular today. The CEO himself, Shaun Mielekamp, joins me here in the Marty Mariner showroom. Been a massive couple of weeks for the club, both on and off the field. We're obviously going to talk about some Socceroos, three of the boys who are going to be heading over with the Socceroos to the World Cup in Qatar. We're going to talk to him about that. We're going to get any updates that we have on the women's team that have been admitted into the competition season after next. Can't wait to hear if there's any updates there. We're going to talk to him about how he's seen the season so far through the eyes of a CEO. And we're going to get to as many questions that we can that you fired into us through our different social channels. Really appreciate you sending in those questions. We'll get to as many as we possibly can. We better not keep the CEO waiting any longer. It's the Marty Mariner Show. And welcome back to the Marty Mariner Show. Said we had a very special guest today. He's the head honcho, the big cheese, the top brass, the CEO of the Central Coast Mariners, Shaun Mielekamp. Mate, how you doing?
Yeah, cheers, mate. Going well. It's been a nice little time for the club at the moment. So it's got to make hay while the sun shines, and now's that moment for us.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Well, let's start about talking about a bit of that sunshine that's been happening lately. Three of our boys in the Socceroos squad to go to Qatar. Exciting listening to them, talking about it, how excited they are, means a lot to them. For you as a CEO, what does it mean to have three members of our club that are going to be travelling over?
Yeah, for me as a CEO, it's really a bit of indication of all those hard years, all those tough times, everything that we sort of went through, and getting beaten up, getting questioned, wondering what's going on, and knowing that, the long-term strategy around building an academy and about, developing and getting the foundations right, and, taking it step by step, and getting through the hard yards of all those years. Well, now there's a bit of a fruition from that. So you do feel a bit rewarded for that. And I'm sure that everybody that's been in the club in the last, 8 years or so has shared in a bit of that pride. To be the only A-League club to ever provide three players into a World Cup is a badge of honour that's going to at least take another club 4 years to get to. So we can own that for plenty of time. But yeah, they're great people too. So I'm really honoured to not only know them but cheer them on. Vuka, Grang, and Jace. They're going to do the club and the country proud, and so I'm just really excited for them personally.
Absolutely. And we saw a fair bit of it in that Access All Areas documentary went out last week. And also there was a video that the club put out where I think you were making a bit of a speech to the boys, which was a total setup for them to get absolutely drenched by the rest of the group. This group seems really tight. You could just see how genuinely happy they were for each other. That's the feeling that you get as well when you see these guys. You probably see them more than I do on the training ground. Yeah,
absolutely. It is. It's you never feel going down being around the boys that you're not welcome. And as a CEO, that happens a lot, right? There's plenty of times you go down. And I remember when I first started at the club, there was a particular goalkeeper that was there and would go out of his way to make it uncomfortable for a CEO to be around a football team. And it's a total opposite. These guys are, they're really close. We are a big family. They're really welcoming. The stitch up. I was meant to be part of that stitch up, because I was meant to call them in nice and close into the middle and say a bit, and was going to get part of it. So I was very happy to point and step back and watch them all get covered. I got a nice tip off from someone internally that was going to happen. So I appreciate that. But it really is. It's a great group of guys, and when the new players come in and new personalities come in, it's so welcoming that they buy into that spirit really, really quickly, and you hear the players say that themselves. So it's a real core part, because when you've got that good culture, it's easy to keep.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I actually felt a bit sorry for Danny because you could hear on the video he said he was just about to make a really heartfelt kind of speech, and they absolutely got drenched, which was a classic. But I mean, he's been a revelation, just one of the three we can talk about since he's come back. We've got to speak to him at the open training session that you had. He seems really settled, committed, and this is probably just reward for that, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and and to have a club legend, come back to the club at this time. We needed a good, clear leader for us to maintain that consistency and that consistency of culture. And Beerers caught us by surprise with the move with Beerers. So fate sort of dealt a great card for everybody that's there. And he's such a great leader. He's such a top bloke. Vuk is so much part of the Mariners DNA that's I still love hearing every time the crowd asks him what the score is.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And it's been quite regular. He got quite worn out when we were playing Western the other week too. So at least he was keeping up, which was fantastic to see. So, mate, the season kicked off probably not in the best possible way. The Jets game got absolutely flooded. Such a disappointment, right? There was a really good build-up momentum, first game of the season, a derby. Really great numbers came down from the Jets as well to support the game. Must be absolutely gutting for the club to go, we're not on.
Yeah, and just the commotions of the night were tough too. There's processes and protocols that we have to go through, and we knew very early on that this game was going to get called off. Yeah. But we had to go through those scenarios to give it every chance. And the irony about the way that the processes flow. So as soon as there was thunder within 10 Ks, the match commissioner steps in and says there's thunder within 10 Ks and we've got to wait half an hour. So it sits in the match commissioner's hands. And so that was all okay. We're waiting that period, and then the rain came. So once we got past that phase of the half an hour for the thunder and the thunder had stopped, the rain had really hit. So then it actually moves from the match commissioner to the referees. And so then the referees come out and they go, the pitch is underwater, you can't play. Yeah. So then they just delay the game. So then once they've gone through that process, it then comes to the CEOs and the A-League, we're on the phone to go, right, how long do we stretch this out and when do we make the call? So what ended up dragging out for a bit over an hour, we all kind of knew at the start, but if at any stage one of those pieces didn't happen, the game would have been on. But that's the way it played out. It was tough. We had it was I suppose the irony is not lost around being able to farewell Simo twice in a couple aspects. The weather that was there, it was emotional. It was great to have so many former players and coaches there for him. But to not get a game was tough. But it did give him a moment that was all his, and then we got to do it again the following week. And the best part is we get to line up and beat the Jets twice in a row at home.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking to Simo a couple of weeks ago, I mean, I know how much that night actually meant to him, and he said he was as gutted as anyone that we didn't get a game of football in. But for him to have that moment, and then to be replayed when we were there the following week or so in the sunshine, when obviously conditions were a lot better. It was great to see all the old boys that came back to celebrate with him. So it must have been tough for yourself, sort of going between this really emotional Simo farewell and all that going on. Plus, are we going to be playing football? So it must have been a nice juggle on the night for you.
It was crazy. Like, there was a great function happening out the back. The phone starts buzzing and you're hearing the thunder, and then all of a sudden you're running in and out of a function, and I'm running back to the function to give Arnie and all the players an update about what's happening, what the scenarios are, and which mean this game's not going to go ahead, but I can't officially say it's not going ahead. Yeah. So to be honest, it was quite comical, but those boys are they're still experienced pros, right? So they get how the whole system works, and they're all there for Simo, and it made for a memory. I'll be honest, it made for a memory.
Yeah, and as I said, speaking to a couple of them, and they absolutely loved it. Is there any more plans? Because I'm really into the history. I was talking to we had Shaun on the program last night, who's doing a book for the 20th year of the A-League. He's putting it all together, and we were sort of talking history and players, and I said I think we don't realise that it's actually been almost coming up to 20 years since the A-League actually kicked off, and the history that we've actually created, that players who are playing then, this is like 20 years into the future. Is there sort of any plans with those older players to sort of keep them coming back, keep them involved in those kind of things, just so us younger ones can remember them all?
Yeah, definitely. It was something that really struck me when I came to the club, that there was an actual big disconnection between the former players and the club. And I suppose at some aspects, the majority of players, when they finish their career, it's not great, right? And there's 1,000 different ways that it happens, but it's often a negative process. So keeping that relationship is difficult sometimes. But when I first came 8 years ago, I really flagged it, and I spoke to Matty Crowell and to Patrick and Gorms and all the crew, Hutch, who was still as assistant coach that was there, and said, I really want this to be part of our club. I think we can be the first club that really has that. So all the former players, they'll get free tickets, right? Like, they're always welcome. There's a box and a place for them that's always available, for them. And I suppose it's something that's really important for the culture of the place, that when the culture does dip, you need these guys around. You need these guys around to, a young player's not going to listen to me about, what he's going through, and where he needs to go. But, being able to have a chat to Adam Kwasnick, like that's huge, and the former players can have an independent conversation with the players in the club. They understand it, but they're not actually part of it. So there's a lack of agenda there, which is really great. And I was speaking to Danny McBreen today, in fact, only probably about an hour and a half ago, about when we're doing this again next. He couldn't make it because of the commitments, and wants to make sure we give plenty of notice so he can get to the next one that's there. So it is a big part of who we are and where we want to go. And I really want to continue, because at the moment it's just really been focused around those sort of foundation players, that glory period that we had in the premiership team, which is coming up to 10 years. That's there, but what about all the other guys that have been in and around? They went through some of the tough times, and some of those colourful characters that may not be recognised Mariners, but they're all. Once you're a Mariner, you're always a Mariner. So to celebrate some of them over the period of time, I think is really important. Hearing about their journeys, and I think it's just a really big part of club culture for us. So yeah.
Yeah, and as you know too, Spit, they love it. It makes them feel appreciated. But that, as you said, once a Mariner, always a Mariner. So, long may things like that continue. And as we touched on Simo too. So, obviously he had to make the decision. Well, the decision was sort of made for him to not be playing anymore. That time where he had to sit down with you guys and say, that's it. I mean, I know he said about it being a heartbreaking time, but it must be. I mean, it was devastating for fans. It must have been devastating for you guys as well.
Yeah, it's probably one of the toughest sort of periods that we've gone through, because we were all praying. We were all praying it was going to be the miracle story, right? We're all wanting the miracle comeback and see him out in full flight again. So, but it wasn't to be, and and just the emotion of it all for everybody. In hindsight, over the course of period and time and history, I think we'll learn to appreciate how much he means to the club and how much the club means to him in this. So this period, I think, was something that becomes etched in your DNA. Is I think what I'm trying to say. And I remember, very clearly when Hutch departed, and how tough that was for me personally, because I was really close with Hutch, and as it has rolled out, the role of the club, for a player who changes their career from being on the field to off the field is something that the club's got to wear with pride. We've got to get this right. It's really important that we provide more of a career than just a playing career, and falling into that trap of just treating a player like a number and your contract's finished. Good luck with the rest of your life. I don't want that to be our club, and I don't think that is our club.
No, absolutely. And I mean, as timing would have it, that open training session I spoke of before was the day after, and Matty came out with the coaching jacket on, and the boys started to do their lap, and he sort of almost, am I supposed to do that? Am I not? And even he filled in for a little bit of time in one of the games because a few of the boys were resting, and he was still dirty on himself because he wasn't getting the ball on target. So it's so raw for him too. But with the age of our squad, I mean, his experience and him just being around that group on that level, that's just you can't buy that.
Yeah, 100%. He won't even know what it is that he's doing. It's just him being him.
Absolutely. So so hopefully we'll see him plenty around. So look, the season rolled along. Bit disappointing in Wellington, last minute equaliser, and came back at Perth, and probably didn't get the result, even though we were playing the good football, but just not putting it in the back of the net. You're someone who speaks to, obviously, Monty a fair bit. I'd imagine he's someone who doesn't take those things lying down and would fire up. As a personality and as a coach, what do you find is his best quality? Because he would have had to have probably been a little bit disappointed at the start of the season.
Look, his best quality is his absolute determination and professionalism. I think you heard some of the players mention it in the World Cup announcements that he's the first one to training, last one to leave. So he doesn't take losing well. But the way that he accommodates for that is to work hard. So doesn't rant and rave, doesn't kick the cat. Takes it upon himself and reflects, has a look at where the improvements are. And I think what was really hard for the football department is, as we got to those early parts of the season, the way that we were affected with Garang and Nectar being pulled away for the national youth teams was very disruptive for the way that they had built the entire preseason. And so it took a while. Again, it's sort of in hindsight, sort of you can see that now that they've come back and got settled and their plans back in place, would perform better. That part was disruptive. Not to say that he would ever make any excuse. He expects all the boys to get in there and perform. And look, against Perth, we just didn't take our chances. That's reality. And even in that first half of Western United, when we're 2-0 down, and I'm sure everybody was feeling how I'm feeling, going, what the hell sort of season are we about to be in for? Because we totally dominated. 2 went up the other end and banged him in. But he kept believing, and it was a great doco that went through the access all areas to really showcase what we don't get to see about Monty. And I could call him right now a Hill Lancer. I could call him it. We're literally, I think it was 1 a.m. in the morning. We were still exchanging text messages. Last night, just living it together. Living every moment and kicking every ball together. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, who'd have thought a Topol Stanley send-off probably turned the season around a little bit, because obviously that sort of, even though we were having chances, the ball started to find the back of the net, we win the game. And I've said since then that the game against the Wanderers last weekend, I'm struggling to think of a more complete game than we've played over the last few years. It was just one of those games you could, and I have watched it a few times, but it's just one of those entertaining football games where we just never looked like losing that game. Can you think of a better performance of late? Because it must have been a while ago.
No, before my time. You're thinking the 7-2s. You're thinking, you're thinking back in the Graham Arnold days since we had a performance like that. Definitely. So when you get to those games and you start to go, how the hell do you pick them out of the match? On a performance like that where everybody performs so well. And so it's. They set themselves a high benchmark now because that's what everyone's going to expect. So that's. But they keep delivering those sort of performances, and we're in for one hell of a season. And I just can't wait. I just want it to be Sunday right now so we can go and see him go again.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. That's the way it should be. You should leave the ground seeing that and go, right, when's the next one? It's just like bring it all on, and hopefully on Sunday at 3:00 we've got a decent crowd into the stadium. The club's running the Kids Go Free promotion again, and I love the promotion. Was it base $16 or 16 tickets? The boys going to be happy with all their new neighbours moving in there for their game.
Well, I mean, that was a promotion, but it does cover base 13 to 18. So we'll see how it plays out. And look, at the end of the day, it was really, around my head around, that Wanderers game. It was 12 players on the pitch because our fans were unbelievable. There was, when I think about, some of the awesome away trips, that's right up there. I think of the one that we played Wellington down in Wollongong where we really saw a big impact from the crowd, and credit to everybody who was in there, and particularly the big fella with his shirt off at the front. He was having a ball, and by the energy that was coming through from that game, we've got to keep that. That is actually part of our boys performing that way. We have to deliver that, and that's so bloody hard. It's easy to say, but all those people are going to scatter to sit in their normal seats. Base 16 is going to be 1,000 degrees in the sun. It's going to be hot. It's going to be tough. I've probably got to kick Pete Pryor out of the commentary box and down into to be there with the real people for a change. To going. So how do we keep going? That we need new people. We need lots of people. We need lots of energy that will buy into that. That happens. So hopefully this promotion works. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who bought 16 tickets and might use 6. for them. And but I've been getting messages of people sort of delivering them to schools and giving them out to any mates that's there. And as we get to this part of the season, it's an onboarding process.
Yeah.
If we get a good crowd, get the active support really pumping, get the win, then we'll have a break. And then by the time the Newcastle Jets game comes around, everyone will be craving to come in, and we'll go again, and we'll go bigger and better again. So, the early indications are really great for that promo. I'm also really excited about getting back to the bowling club. That was a plan that we had many years ago that, to be fair, was hampered by some poor on-field performances. But it really started to die because the club was in a tough period when we were getting that going, and then hit COVID and couldn't get into it. But there is a little place that we can have as our pre-match, because the precinct doesn't work. That's there. So I believe we'll have plays. I believe that as an exclusive for you, Richard Peel will be on the barbecue.
Oh, really? Awesome.
So the chairman's going to be there, be on the barbecue. To meet everybody. There's members caps going up. We've got all Jason Cummings tattoos, iron-on tattoos for everyone who comes along. Look, there's not free beer, but you might get a token for a free beverage that could get you a beer. I think that's the RSA way for me to describe it.
Instant raffle.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll throw everything that we can because really, ultimately, this isn't about anything else apart from getting the 3 points and doing everything that we can as a club to lift those boys.
Absolutely, and I mean, I remember the bowling club and it was really good with the families. Like the kids were running. I mean, I'm sure they loved it with the bowling greens and the kids running around and all that sort of stuff. But it just gave everyone that focal point before the game. And it's not like then had to walk a mile to get to the ground. You were right next door. So yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be a fantastic idea. And seeing the big boss on the barbecue, that'll be absolutely sensational. So be lots of queues up for those. Be good to see. And speaking of absolutely great things, we've got a women's team kicking off in the not too distant future. We're fortunate enough on the program. We have the front three where Carly's part of that, and she started talking about when this first started. And I remember the first little focus groups and that. For those that don't know, this hasn't just been write a letter to the FFA, can we have a team? Yes, you can, start next year. This has been a real battle, hasn't it, to get a women's team?
Yeah, it has been. It has been because there's been politics, there's been negativity, there's been a whole industry that, for whatever reason, has wanted us to not be part of it, and to break into this has been a very, very long road. It started out with lobbying around getting the right change rooms into the stadium, and it's really about making sure that we do the right thing for the women's game. And not only the right thing, but actually be a leader and a pioneer going forward for that. And as every year ticked over, more and more excuses and things hampered in a way. We were totally shocked when Wellington was sort of skipped a queue. And then it was a bit of a gut punch when Western United was somehow given a license ahead of us that I still haven't got a proper explanation. I get, that there's a need down there, but we've had to jump through every hoop, and they don't even have a stadium. Yeah, so I can't wait for that new franchise derby, because if they don't have a stadium by then, I'll be holding up a sign myself saying, "Where's your stadium?" But it was tough. It was tough. Carly was huge, over the years in developing the plans and submitting proposal after proposal. I think we ended up with 6 different submissions to come through, and at the end of the day, when it really come down to it, Richard Peel met with James Johnson, and that's when the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. So much of it was really behind and the lack of confidence around the club's long-term future, and a lack of confidence about the club's ability to finance a fully operational women's team. That's what's the core barriers we had to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just fantastic. And I think, the fact that our first player we ever signed, Damien Brown, local guy from Baddo Bay. Now this time around, it's Annalise Rasmussen. It just, it sort of echoes the history that sort of carried through, and I love every part of that. So the timeline now, coaching appointment wise, is that probably next on the agenda to then start building the squad?
Yeah, definitely is. So yeah, it's about finding the new Laurie McKenna, isn't it? And so yeah, so look, the aim's 1 January. That's an internal aim that we put on that. More so, the team can't really form or start training till 1 July as it is anyway, and they won't really start training until September. So we won't see a lot until September. So there is a lot of time that's there, but through that period, there's a lot of planning and detail to go in. For it. So we are actively in that process right now. I've got a long list of candidates that's there, and internally making sure that we've ticked the right boxes in and around. There's making sure that we've got everything lined up. So when these girls start, they go, "Wow, what a club! I'm so glad I'm here."
Away we go. Well, we know what those coaching selection processes can be like. So we hope that we'll get the right people on board, which I'm sure we will. And as I said, I'm really pumped for it. Will there be plans to have double header games as well? Because I know we've had those in the past. Or will there be very much kind of the home and away kind of alternate to the men? Is there any kind of thoughts what we'd love to do there?
Yeah, it's a combination. It really is, because what the league has learned over the time, 3 years ago, it was all double headers.
Yeah.
But what the league has definitely learned, and some of the insights, is that the double headers kind of detracts from the women's game. It becomes a curtain raiser, a secondary act, rather than putting the women's game on its own pedestal and profile that it deserves. So I think that there will be a combination. It'll be very hard not to think of a big double header against the Wanderers, where you've got men's and women's together. That's going to be a huge event. So I'm sure that some of those are going to be marquee events that will come through. New Year's Eve, as an example, that's going to be a double header, right? We're going to do the girls and the boys on New Year's. What a great day that's going to be. But then there's going to be some key times that the girls will need to have their own game. We'll see their own crowd. Have fans there just for the women, so that they get their own. They get an equal share of spotlight, which I think is really important. And that's the best way to make sure that we've got a good A-League W crowd that's there for the girls. That's not just coming in to see what it's about early. It's about getting off your ass and being there and supporting our second national team for the region.
Absolutely, and we're certainly looking forward to as the signings come in to be having a chat to a few of them as well, and keeping everyone posted as much as we can, because I just think it'll be huge, and especially coming off the back of the World Cup in the country next year. So maybe seeing a few of those players who see the country and they might want to stay, so we might entice them with a few palm trees and sauce bottles. You never know when they want to come up. Last question from me. Your greatest achievement since you've been at the club, what would you class as being your greatest achievement?
Keeping the club alive.
Yep.
I think that COVID period was a dark time. It really was tough. Yep. Even just thinking about it is a bit emotional. So I think it's something that the women's is going to be really important, and there are 1,000 highlights, and I can't wait till I get to say that winning the championship was overtakes that. I don't know. It's a negative answer that I don't really sort of may not upon reflection be the right one, but I think it's that was particularly challenging in many aspects, and there was a big period of time that I was literally the only one going to work. So it's just to keep the place afloat was a real tough challenge, and to be where we are now is so rewarding for all that. And and I know when the girls run out for their first game, I'll definitely shed a tear, because that's been a long time coming. And but there's loads in there, and if anything, I suppose the proudest part for me is just the personal development of the staff, the tight knit group that we have, seen them grow. I remember when I first met Gabby, she said she couldn't tell what you're talking to me for, and she's unbelievable. And Big Dan and Carly, and the relationships with Ken and Sharon, that family that's there, that's probably the answer I should have led with, to be honest.
We'll edit that out. We'll just swap that all around for you. That's fine. But and I've said for God, and getting to know the staff as we do as fans of the clubs and members of the club, just knowing the work that these guys put in. I still don't think 90% of the membership of the fans really understand the hours, the commitment that these guys put in. And it's all led by yourself, and there wouldn't be a Central Coast Mariners if it wasn't for that. So I know a great number of us are very appreciative of it. And as you said, when the good times roll, these are the times that you actually really feel that celebration because of where you come from to start with. Look, I had a couple of questions. I put a few notes out about a few questions for yourself. The first one, our good friend Todd from Newcastle. He loves the reciprocal thing with Newcastle, the tickets and stuff like that. I think that's a great idea too. But just off the back of that, do you think anything should or could be arranged where it comes to away fans going interstate? At the moment, aeroplane flights, hotel accommodation, and all of a sudden it's $25 for a ticket. If a member travels to another state, do you think they might come to a day where they might say, "Here's your ticket included"?
Yeah, I do. I do think this was something good with Newcastle that I was really passionate when I came. I really believed in it, and also almost wanted to show the league that there's another way to think about these things. If anyone's ever heard this, some of the ways that Brighton Hove Albion over in the UK welcome away fans, they put on the away beer, they dress that part of the stadium in the away team colours. To some in the industry, that's lunacy. That's actual sacrosanct. How you could possibly, look to give an edge to an opposition, and so that's probably that football culture that is difficult to overcome in that conversation. And you look at our rivals this weekend. I'm good friends with Sam and the crew that's up there, and Anthony, the general manager there in particular. But they almost go out of their way to make it impossible for away fans to come. They charge a price and don't make it welcoming at all, and listen to those freaking cowbells and all that stuff. They're the total opposite. But for me, I think MacArthur would be probably the first one off the rank next. That you think, well, hang on, we can do a reciprocal one here at Campbelltown. When we rock up, we generally send some buses and quite a few people, and encouraging their fans to travel is a part of it. And we're as a group of A-League supporters, we're actually all in this together. Like there are rivalries, but there's also some camaraderie there. As Todd is, I think Todd is the only Newcastle fan I actually like. So sorry for those other Newcastle fans that are out there that know me, but yeah, Todd's one of those fan ambassadors that's he's special for the game, right? There's a few of them out there, and so I'm glad he appreciates his free ticket to our games.
Absolutely, mate. No, he's never missed a game down this way. He always comes and says hello, always catch up regularly. Also on one of our other shows too. He's as you said, he's an icon when it comes to fans on the Central Coast, on the A-League. So it's good to see that. Quick one from Shah. We had the documentary last week, the Access All Areas. I think it's about 10 years since we had the documentary thing. Is it time to have another one of those, or are they just getting a bit too tough to organise these days?
It's a great question. So if you were to ask me, had we already filmed a pilot, that'd be interesting. From the same producers, but you didn't ask me that, so I can't answer it.
Okay.
But in saying that, it is the way of the future for sports content in this space. That inside look at Access All Areas was fantastic, and I do think that those are important. And yeah, it is 10 years, and I know it's 10 years because I was talking to Danny McBreen about when we play the Wanderers on the 28th of January. Maybe we should make a bit of a big deal about 10 years since we won the comp, and just remind them. Who's won a premiership and who hasn't.
Wouldn't be a bad idea. I think we'd all be behind that one, absolutely. Mate, I know you answered Lockie already, who asked if it's too early to think about the January window. Yes, it is. That's the answer. And just finally, the Women's World Cup, there was talk about maybe teams training at the facilities. Is there anything that's come about with that, or is it still a bit too far out? Where's that sort of ended up?
Yeah, look, I know that Central Coast is in a box seat. It's definitely part of the base camp options for all the international teams in the Matildas that's there. So I think quietly we're very confident that our region presents a fantastic opportunity. So I'll be disappointed if we don't get one of the top teams. If I could put it that way, I'd be very confident that I know the US states have already announced that they're going to New Zealand.
Right.
And I think the 18th was the first day they heard in 8 days when they will start announcing where everybody else is going. So I'm very optimistic that our World Cup experience on the coast will be exciting, and whichever country that is, I'll definitely be trying to speak to as many of those players about staying and becoming a Mariner.
Absolutely. Why not? And and I mean, it's as much as the Men's World Cup is taking up a bit of the headlines at the moment, but it'll soon roll around to the next year, and obviously hosting the World Cup between Australia and New Zealand is massive for women's football. And then after that, a matter of, I think it's about 10 weeks after, I think the A-League women's season kicks off. So not too long after it. So big year coming up for the women's game next year, especially for the Central Coast Mariners. Can't wait for that. Mate, thanks so much for your time today. I honestly really appreciate it. We know how busy you are, and it's been a massive couple of weeks for the club. So thanks so much for coming on, and here's to a big crowd and 3 points on Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And congrats on the coaching gig out of the Cougars. You've come to a mighty club. So can't wait to see you in action. And thanks everyone out there. Get there on Sunday. We'll see you all there. Let's go and kick ass.
Too easy. Thanks, mate. And that is our show for today. Massive thank you to the Central Coast Mariners CEO, Shaun Mielekamp, for taking time out to have a bit of a chat with us today. We honestly really appreciate it. It won't be the last time that you'll see Shaun on the channel. Some really exciting times at the club as we speak. And speaking of exciting times, 3 o'clock on Sunday is an exciting time at Central Coast Stadium. The Mariners are up against Macarthur. It is the last game for about 4 weeks due to the Men's World Cup. Make sure you get there. It's imperative that we get 3 points in this game to stabilise our position in the table. We need to get a crowd. The away support at the West Sydney Wanderers game last week was absolutely phenomenal. We need to times that by about 10 to get behind the boys, to grab those 3 points and to send off the three boys to the World Cup on a high. 3 points in the bag. How good would that be? And let's face it, a full crowd, we're not going to hear a cowbell. If that's not a bigger incentive than anyone is to drown out the cowbells, well, I don't know what is. So make sure you get there, Central Coast. Family-friendly time at 3 o'clock. And what is family-friendly is kids go free. Yeah, you can get your tickets, again, for the kids for free. Make sure you check out the club's socials on how to claim your free tickets. Members can also do that. So I know a number of members were sort of talking about how do we get our tickets. You can do it. So make sure you check out the club's socials and find out how members can claim their kids' tickets as well. It's going to be a massive afternoon at the stadium, so make sure you are there. Of course, it's not going to rain. It will not flood. That never happens here on the Central Coast, he says with his fingers crossed, well and truly, and a smile on his face. It's been a massive show. Before I forget, a massive thank you. When we had the families come on the field the other week, a number of you guys came over and said, "Oh, hey, I see your videos and all that." Love it. It's great. Just by all means, come and say g'day. This is just a hobby for me, just to get to chat to a lot of people about football. But thank you so much. I honestly really appreciate you coming and saying hi. And yeah, absolutely. If you see me around the place, make sure you do so. If you are not a subscriber to the channel yet, hit that little button in the corner, subscribe to the channel. It just helps grow our fan base, and it means that other people can get to see the videos. Spread the word about the mighty Central Coast Mariners. We have other shows as well that cover other clubs, where we talk to members from other clubs about what's going on with them and how they see us and news around the league. And we've got plenty of interviews coming up soon too, as well as a World Cup preview show with the boys from the It's a Football Thing YouTube channel coming up next week too, which is also very exciting. So subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it. It'll cost you nothing to do it. Hit that notification bell. We'll make sure that you don't miss out on an episode. And don't forget to hit that like button. Lets me know that this is the content that you love to see. What a show. There's more happening real soon, and I'm looking forward to getting them to you. And go the Mariners on Sunday. What do we reckon? 2-0, 3-0? Let's make it happen. Make sure you get there. Look forward to seeing you all there. It's been the MartyMariner Show.